One of the most common health mistakes I see in older adults doesn't happen in a hospital, and it doesn't happen in a pharmacy. It happens in the kitchen, quietly, almost automatically, when yesterday's leftovers go back into a pan, an oven, or a microwave without a second thought. And here's the part that surprises people, sometimes. The problem is not just the food itself. It's what happens to that food when it is heated again, especially when it's browned, crisped, or pushed to high temperatures a second time. I'm Dr. Thomas Reynolds, and today I want to talk to you about for foods I strongly encourage older adults to avoid reheating whenever possible, especially if you're trying to protect your colon, your cells, your heart, your energy, and your long-term independence. This is not about fear, it's about understanding how certain foods can change when they're heated again, why that may matter more after 60 or 70, and what simple swaps can help you lower risk without feeling deprived. And let me say this clearly from the beginning. This is not about one meal causing cancer overnight. That is not how cancer works. Cancer risk is usually built slowly, over time, through repeated exposures, chronic irritation, inflammation, oxidative stress, poor dietary patterns, and the body's reduced ability to repair damage as efficiently as it once did. In other words, it is often the drip, drip, drip that matters, not just the flood. So in the next few minutes, I'm going to walk you through for foods that become especially concerning when reheated, explain the science in plain English, show you what most people misunderstand about them, and give you realistic steps you can use starting today. And stay with me, because the final food on this list is one that many people think is perfectly fine, even healthy, while reheating it the wrong way may create exactly the kind of chemical stress you do not want more of as you age. If you're watching this and you're over 60 or caring for someone who is, I'd love for you to leave your age in the comments. I always find it encouraging to see how many people are taking their health seriously and making thoughtful changes, one habit at a time. Let's begin with number 4, processed meats. I'm talking about bacon, sausage, hot dogs, deli meats, ham, salami, pepperoni, and many of the packaged meats people keep in the refrigerator because they're easy, familiar, and quick. These foods are already a concern before you reheat them because many processed meats contain preservatives such as nitrites or nitrates, those compounds help preserve color and shelf life. But under certain conditions, especially high heat, they can contribute to the formation of compounds called nitrosamines. And nitrosamines are exactly the sort of compounds cancer specialists pay attention to. Now let me translate that into everyday language. Think of processed meat as a product that already comes with chemical baggage. When you heat it hard again, especially until it sizzles, crisps, or browns deeply, you can increase the chance of creating more unwanted byproducts. It's a little like taking something that is already stressed and putting it through another round of pressure. What most people misunderstand is this. The danger is not only the reheating itself. It's the combination of processed ingredients, salt, preservatives, and repeated high heat. That combination matters. And it matters even more in older adults because the body is no longer as forgiving as it was at 35 or 45 after 70. Your cells may not repair damage as efficiently. Chronic inflammation may already be higher. The colon may be more vulnerable. Blood pressure, kidney function, and vascular health may already be carrying extra burden. So when you pile chemical stress on top of metabolic stress, you are asking more from a body that may already be working harder. And this isn't only about cancer. These foods are often high in sodium, which can affect blood pressure and fluid balance. Many are high in saturated fat. Some people notice more bloating, sluggish digestion, reflux, or poor sleep after eating them late. So the issue becomes bigger than one headline. It becomes a pattern of stress. Here is the practical advice I give my older patients. If you have leftover processed meat, do not make it a routine to fry it, crisp it, or microwave it until it's steaming and curled at the edges. Better yet, reduce how often it's in the house at all. Choose freshly cooked chicken, turkey, eggs, beans, lentils, tuna, salmon, or plain roasted meat that has not been heavily preserved. If you do eat processed meat occasionally, keep portions smaller and avoid charring it. The goal is not perfection. The goal is less repeated exposure. And the next food becomes risky for a different reason. One that has a lot to do with oil, oxidation, and heat damage. Number 3, fried foods, especially when they are reheated to become crispy again. Think about leftover fried chicken, French fries, breaded fish, onion rings, fried cutlets, battered takeout, or anything that has already spent time in very hot oil and then gets reheated the next day in an oven, air fryer, toaster oven, or skillet to bring back that crunch. I understand why people do it. Nobody wants soggy leftovers. But this is where the chemistry becomes important. When oils are heated to high temperatures, especially repeatedly, they can start to break down and oxidize. Oxidation simply means the fat is being damaged by heat and air. That damage can create unstable compounds, including aldehydes and other byproducts that researchers have studied for their potential role in inflammation and cellular stress. In plain English, the oil starts turning from fuel into irritation. Now picture your body as a home that relies on clean wiring and clean pipes. Damaged fats are like sending dirty fuel through the system. It may not cause immediate disaster, but over time it may increase wear and tear. Inflammation rises, blood vessels don't like it, the gut doesn't like it, cells don't like it, and the older you get, the less room you have for repeated irritants. What many seniors don't realize is that this becomes a double burden. Fried foods are often energy-dense and nutrient-light, meaning they bring a lot of calories but not much repair material. Then reheating them at high temperatures can add another layer of stress. So instead of giving the body building blocks, you're asking it to manage more debris. This matters after 60 because inflammation is one of the quiet drivers of so many age-related problems. Joint discomfort, vascular stiffness, insulin resistance, fatigue, slower recovery, and possibly the kind of environment in which damaged cells are more likely to thrive. Again, not one plate, a pattern. So what should you do? First, if something is already fried, try not to save it with the intention of crisping it all over again. If you know you won't eat it fresh, it may be better not to buy extra. Second, when you want leftovers, choose foods that reheat gently with moisture rather than dry blast heat. Soups, stews, beans, plain baked fish, oatmeal. Cooked vegetables and roasted chicken without heavy breading tend to be much kinder on the body. Third, if you use oils at home, avoid repeatedly reusing the same oil for frying. Fresh oil is not magic, but degraded oil is a problem you can actually reduce. And now we come to number 2, a food category that surprises many people because it doesn't sound dangerous at all. Starchy foods that are reheated until dark, browned, or extra crispy, especially potatoes. I'm talking about French fries, hash browns, potato wedges, tater tots, roasted potatoes, and similar starchy foods that people often cook once, refrigerate, and then reheat at high heat to get that crisp texture back. The reason this matters is something called acrylamide. Acrylamide is a chemical that can form in certain starchy foods when they're cooked at high temperatures, especially when they become very browned or burned. Now let's simplify that. Potatoes and similar starchy foods contain natural sugars and an amino acid called asparagine. When high heat hits that combination, especially in dry cooking like frying, roasting, or baking, a browning reaction occurs. That same browning that makes food look appetizing can also create compounds we would rather keep lower, including acrylamide. This is why I tell older adults not to chase extra crispy as if it were a health goal. The misunderstanding here is easy to see. People assume the danger is only in greasy fast food. But even at home, repeatedly heating potatoes until they're dark and crunchy may push them further into that zone of chemical change. The body can handle some exposure. Of course it can. But once again, this is about cumulative burden. Why does this matter more with age? Because after 70, many people are already dealing with oxidative stress, which is a kind of internal rusting process. Cells are constantly exposed to wear from metabolism, inflammation, blood sugar swings, poor sleep, environmental exposure, and age itself. So when you repeatedly eat foods that have been cooked into a darker, harsher chemical state, you may be adding more sparks to an already dry field. There's another issue too. These foods are often easy to overeat and low in protective nutrients unless they're balanced carefully. A plate of reheated fries may fill the stomach without nourishing the body in the way older adults truly need: protein, fiber, minerals, steady energy, and anti-inflammatory support. So what's the better choice? If you cook potatoes, aim for lighter cooking rather than deep browning. If you have leftovers, reheat them gently and don't take them all the way too dark crisp. Better yet, rotate in foods that age more gracefully in the refrigerator. Lentils, sweet potatoes mashed fresh, brown rice prepared safely, soups, steamed vegetables, beans, and intact grains. You do not have to fear every potato. The point is to stop turning them into little brown chemical delivery systems just because crisp feels satisfying. And before I give you the final food, let me say something important. If this is helping you think differently about your kitchen habits, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. Not because you need more fear, but because you deserve calm, medically grounded guidance that actually respects how aging works in real life. Now, let's talk about number one, and this is the one I worry many people misunderstand the most: charred or heavily browned meats that are reheated again. That includes leftover steak, burgers, grilled chicken, barbecue, chops, meatloaf edges, and roasted meats that were already cooked to a dark surface and then reheated until they brown again. This is where cancer specialists become especially careful, because meat cooked at high temperatures can form compounds such as heterocyclic amines and polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons. Those names sound technical, but the idea is simple. When muscle meats are exposed to intense heat, especially open flame, pan searing, or charring, chemical compounds can form that have been studied for their potential role in cancer risk. Now imagine what happens when a piece of meat has already gone through that once, and then the next day it gets thrown into a hot skillet, air fryer, broiler, or oven until the edges crisp and darken again. You are not creating something fresh. You are further stressing an already stressed food. This is why I tell patients, if the meat was already charred the first time, do not reheat it hard the second time. Many people assume that protein is always a safe leftover, and protein is important, especially after 70, when preserving muscle becomes critical. But the form matters, the cooking method matters, the surface chemistry matters. A gently cooked piece of chicken is not the same as a blackened burger reheated until it crackles. Why does this matter so much for older adults? Because protein should be helping maintain muscle, mobility, healing, and immune function. But if the protein arrives packaged with a layer of high heat damage, that benefit can become mixed with a different kind of burden. It is a little like trying to repair your roof using materials that are already scorched. There is also a colon health angle here. Many older adults worry about digestion, bowel regularity, and colon cancer, especially if there is family history, polyps, or a past abnormal colonoscopy. While food is never the only factor, repeated intake of highly processed, charred, or aggressively reheated meats is not the direction I want my patients moving in. So here is the practical step-by-step approach I recommend. First, when you cook meat, avoid charring it in the first place. Use lower temperatures when possible. Marinate if appropriate. Cook until safe, not until blackened. Second, if you have leftovers, reheat them gently with moisture. Think soup, broth, covered pan, or mixed in two. A softer dish rather than blasting the surface. Third, if the edges are already burnt or dark, trim them. Do not eat the blackened parts just because you don't want to waste food. Fourth, vary your protein sources. Fish, beans, lentils, yogurt, eggs, tofu, and gently cooked poultry can help support muscle without relying so heavily on heavily browned red or processed meats. And let me add one calm reminder here. If you have unexplained weight loss, trouble swallowing, blood in the stool, persistent abdominal pain, a major change in bowel habits, or ongoing fatigue, please do not try to solve that with food changes alone. Work with your physician. Serious symptoms deserve proper medical evaluation. So when you step back and look at these 4 foods together, a pattern appears. The biggest problem is not just leftovers. It is repeated high heat, repeated chemical stress, and repeated exposure to foods that are already harder on the body. Processed meats, fried foods over brown starchy foods like potatoes, and charred meats. Reheated a second time, different foods, yes, but the same underlying lesson. After 60, 70, and beyond, your body still has remarkable wisdom, but it also has less margin for careless habits. The repair crews are still working, but not as quickly as before. The filters are still filtering, but maybe not as efficiently. The blood vessels still carry life, but they may be more easily irritated. The colon still protects you, but it may be less tolerant of years of inflammatory patterns. That is why small daily choices matter so much more than people realize. Healthy aging is not built only by grand gestures. It is built in ordinary places, in your pantry, in your refrigerator, in what you reheat, in what you stop reheating, in whether your meals are helping your body repair or asking it to spend all its energy defending itself. And that should not make you feel powerless. It should do the opposite. Because this is one of the rare areas of health where you have real control. You may not control every lab result. You may not control every diagnosis in your family history. You may not control every ache that comes with age. But you can control whether last night's charred burger goes back into high heat. You can control whether fried leftovers become a habit. You can control whether convenience quietly turns into chronic exposure. That is where dignity lives, in those quiet decisions. I'm Dr. Thomas Reynolds, and if you take one message from today, let it be this. When it comes to reheating food, the goal is not just taste. It is chemistry. It is inflammation. It is long-term cellular stress. And in many older adults, avoiding these 4 reheated foods may be one more practical step toward protecting energy, digestion, circulation, clarity, and independence for the years ahead. If this video spoke to you, tell me in the comments which of these foods shows up most often in your kitchen. And if you want more calm, trustworthy guidance for healthy aging, subscribe and stay with us, because growing older is not about giving up control. It is about using wisdom earlier, so your body has less to fight later.